All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let me just drop the link to this Zoom in our Discord just in case people don't remember. All right, cool. So I actually don't have I've got like maybe an hour and a half of stuff to cover this week. Obviously, it's last week. I assume everyone is probably burnt out on thesis and or just school in general. So I totally get that. So this will just be like a quick wrap up for the class. Actually, maybe before I jump into that stuff, like, does anyone have any questions about anything we've gone over this so far over the past 6 or 7 weeks? I recognize this is like a less of a making class and more of just like a me talking at you class. But if there are things that people are interested in doing, like, please definitely like email me or message me on Discord. I mean, probably won't really be using that Discord much after this week, but you're more than welcome to hit me up. But if there's any questions here I can answer now, I'm happy to. Silence. Cool. Anybody in Zoom that has questions or anything? All right, cool. Anyway, I will update the syllabus this week with all the last recordings and everything. And then that syllabus will just be on, on Drive or whatever for forever. So if anyone wants it later, more than welcome to it. Now that I know that no one has the free space on their Drive accounts to use this, I definitely won't be teaching this again in a year. I'm teaching a class, I guess, around this in spring of next year. So I usually only teach every spring. So that material is just going to be on the internet. Feel free to share it with other NYU folks, other people you know. I'm happy to answer questions about any of it going forward. But yeah, it's going to kind of be like a locked in time kind of deal for this class as we move on to other things. So I would imagine next year, it's so hard to predict what I'm going to teach next year. It'll probably be generative video of some kind, just because that's sort of where everything's headed. Who knows what tools and crazy shit we'll see that time in a year from now, but that'll probably be the topic. So if you are a first year and are interested in my next class, that'll probably be what it is. Obviously, it'll be announced or go up whenever you guys register for the next spring class season. Cool. Okay. I mean, if there are other questions, like, please feel free to just email me at my ITP account and I'll answer those as needed. I don't really check my ITP account much when class is over. So if you don't hear back from me in like a week or so, like, just like message me on Discord or I don't know if my personal email is on a syllabus. I'll have my personal email on the syllabus as well in case people want to hit me up there. All right. Let me share what we've got going on this week. So I just share my screen. Cool. Sure. Yeah, so this week I just want to kind of wrap up what we're doing and look at sort of like a very lo-fi tool I made to sort of combine a lot of the material we're looking at for the first couple weeks of class. So this is, again, just built into Colab. But one of the things I want to show people how to do is basically how to run a web server directly through Colab. And then you can actually interact with your Google Drive account as well as your Colab data in order to sort of create a little interactive experience. In this case, just like a filmmaking tool. But I've previously taught ways to like actually interact with generative AI models like directly through the same process. Basically, all it requires you to do is know a little bit of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and basically be able to talk between the Colab server and and the front end of this. So we'll look at that now, and I'll sort of talk through the process for it. It is very lo-fi, pretty ugly, because I don't really put a lot of time into my own tools in terms of making them pretty. As long as they work, that's all I need. So I'll kind of show that. If you are interested in making updates, like, feel free to just make a duplicate of this notebook, and I'm happy to talk through other features you want to make, but also it's like kind of open source, so do whatever you want to do. All right, so just to speed us up here, I am going to use a GPU. So I'm going to look at the runtime type. They've added even more GPUs in the past couple weeks. So now there's like this L4, which seems to be like sort of the middle ground. So I'm going to use that for now. So the goal of this tool is basically to allow us to access our database that we've been making over the past couple weeks and be able to basically make requests using all the different keys and different attributes of our video files. So let's say we want to go in and grab a single video file that most closely matches a description, a duration of clip, as well as the the number of people in that clip, or maybe other parts of details that we've captured in our data set. This would allow us to basically combine all those requests and get back the one most likely video to match that, and then you could build that into like a little basic little storyline to work with. So go ahead and get started. So let me copy the link to this here. There. Cool. Okay. So obviously, first thing we want to do is we want to connect to our Google Drive account. And then we'll want to install all these different tools. The sentence transformers is because we're going to look at that stuff we looked at 2 or 3 weeks ago that was sentence similarity. So we'll use that as a way to check a description against our video files. So that's just going to be the exact same thing we looked at in week 4 or 5. And then what we want to install is we want to install all this stuff, which is ngrok and Flask. Ngrok is a way for us to basically make a tunnel that anyone can access a public page. We're basically going to make a little HTML page that we then serve via our Colab server, essentially. And then we're going to have a little interface between those two. So you've got to install this like PineGrok, Flask cores, like this sort of stuff. So once you install that, you're able to do this. And I'll walk us through the steps to actually set this up for everybody. Actually, while this runs, let's go ahead and get this up. So in order to set this up, you do have to create an account at this ngrok website. So you just go to here, go to ngrok website, and you'll need to create an account. So you just want to come in here and hit sign up. And we'll put in our name. Set one up with my NYU account. So let's start there. And then let's go, man, I'm gonna make a password. Well, anyone that's watching this video now has access to this password, so I'll have to delete that later. The joy of trying to do this live. I don't think I'm gonna have to give them my credit card, so there's no billing or anything attached to that. Just people can make their own. Jesus Christ.
So what if these like don't work?
Oh yeah, for sure.
They actually track your mouse.
Yeah, that's really how they know if you're real or not.
I'll just move it off. I've had some from doing it for like 30 minutes and it's like fail.
I mean, some of them are tricky. Like I got one the other day that was like bridges, and it's like, how do you define a bridge in all cases, right? Like, is this a bridge? No, it's like an overpass or something, right? But it's like, yeah.
I had one yesterday. It was like click all the bikes, and it was or like click all the tiles of the bike, and it was a motorcycle. So
Yeah.
click anything, and it's like wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I wrote.
Ah, crap. Okay, let me see if I can. Get a little cheat account here. Ah, fuck, Jesus Christ. There are the cars here. That's good. Okay. Oh my God, Jesus. Okay, so you got to go through this really annoying process of creating an account. And you got to tell them all about who you are. And I don't really care. Okay, cool. So now you've got that. We're going to come back here, and then you're going to go to your auth token page. And then you are going to create a token. So there's going to be this token up here. You'll copy this. I really am going to need to delete this account once I'm done. And you just paste it in here at the very end. So you go ngrok config, add auth token, and then you paste in your token. You'll run that. And I'll just say, cool, we've got that saved. And then what we can do is we're going to install our sentence transformer model. And then we're going to create some web pages. So again, we just need a web page to serve for people to be able to interact with this. I've got this all set up where you can just literally make it all here. There's some nice stuff inside of Colab that allows you directly to write files directly into Colab. So there's just like this little magic command called write file, and then you pass the file name. So we're just going to create a little HTML file, and we're going to save that into our HTML templates, I guess. Yeah. So this has all already been rewritten or pre-written, so you don't need to worry about it. It's not a class on HTML. I barely know how HTML works anymore, but it's enough for us to get going with this. So this is going to write a little file into our HTML. So we go to HTML templates. You'll see there is now an index file there. And the other thing we want to do is we're going to load in our data set. So I've been working on this data set for a while, so it is quite large. It's like 100 video clips or 100 films. All broken down, and then I've been slowly processing all of this data. Obviously, the biggest challenge with this work is just like the time to just process and manage all that data. So it does take time. That's why it's challenging to do this class in 7 weeks. But I've gone ahead and made one, so I do have access to all this. And again, with most of this stuff, the more data you have, the better off your output is going to be, because the more likely you're going to have a single video clip that matches, the request you make of it. So I'm gonna run this just to load in the entire data set. I think this file is like, I think we looked at this one before. I think it's like 400 megabytes of pure text data. So it's fair to say it's quite large, but it does load quite quickly here. Let me just define it. AF500 clips.json. What are they playing over there? It's so loud, Jesus. Oh, it's only 57 megabytes. Okay, cool. So that's not too large. We're also then going to need to load, in this case, I've run that mplug al video description model on all of my data. So in that case, I can pull in just that data. In most cases, you don't need to pull in this data, but because we are doing that, that sort of lookup, the sentence similarity scoring, we want to also have preloaded in our mplug description data. That's just going to allow us to do the sentence similarity scores. Yeah. Mm. Okay. So this actually takes them a little bit longer than other things because you have to read in your embeddings, and this takes a little bit of time to encode all your embeddings correctly. Is probably encoding something like 10 million clips. So it's going to take a minute. There we go. All done. Cool. So we want to see how many clips are actually in this. In this particular data set, we can run this. So yeah, that's actually not that many. It's 111,000 clips. So what we want to do is let's just sort of experiment and take a look at what our data actually is. This cell is going to basically grab a random clip from my data set and output just all the data that's available in it. So if I run this, it gives me this film clip from Amadeus. It gives me the path. It gives me the dimensions, the duration, the frames per second, the person count, and the shot type confidence. So this actually doesn't have mplug descriptions in it. I'm still actually running all those. So not every clip is going to have that, which means it will probably be excluded from our output, but that's fine. I mean, there's still plenty of data for us to have. If we run this again, what's going on here? Why is this frozen? Here we go. Okay, cool. It grabs another one. And if I look through this, you'll see here, this one does have an mplug description. Let's run it again, just sort of see. I like use this just to take a look at my data to see what I have. Cool. Okay. So it seems like, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of my clips are going to have these descriptions, which is kind of key for what I want to do. This next cell down here will actually give you the exact keys that are included in the JSON file. So if we run this, you'll see these are the keys we have available to us. So we've got the path, the dimensions, the duration, the frames per second, the mplug description, the shot type confidence, whisper dialogue, and the person count. So with this, I would be able to look up how many people are in the scene, how long the scene is, maybe the dimensions of the scene, a description, an AI-based description of what is actually in the scene, a guess at what the shot type is, and then what dialogue is in the scene. So next step is we actually need to pick what we want to work with. So in general, I find it like as much more helpful to sort of predefine what you want to work with. It kind of gives you a sense of like what you're trying to achieve. So in this cell, there are these things called keys. You must take all of the keys or any of the keys that you have up here and place them in this array or this list. So if you want to work with duration, you can add duration. You want to work with person count, you add that. Mplug description, you add that. Shot type and shot type confidence. So actually, maybe what we can do is, maybe I don't really care about the confidence score, so I can just remove that. Let's see what else is up here. Duration. Whisper dialogue would need to be run using the exact same setup here. So I'm going to skip that one for now because I haven't processed all that and all those embeddings. But that's actually something I should add to this notebook. So let me make a note at the very top here. So I'm going to leave this as is. What we'll work with the duration key, the person count, and then the description of the scene, as well as shot type. So this will allow me to sort of get a good sense of things. Like maybe I want to say, oh, I want a 10-second clip with one person in it using this description, and the shot type should be either a close-up or extreme close-up, that sort of thing. So you can edit this to include whatever you want. Don't edit this, because this is kind of like how I define how each of these keys needs to work to do some scoring methods, which we'll look at in a minute. So run this cell. So now save what keys we want to work with. And then this cell is actually going to set up and run our web UI. So we'll run this cell. And at the end, we get here a URL. This is a local URL, which doesn't really work for collabs. You need to use the public URL, which is this. So if you click on this, wow, it's crazy today. Just everyone's losing their minds in here. All right. Cool. Okay, so as you can see, I have an ugly little website here. But this allows us to capture the scenes we want to work with. And also the thing that's kind of interesting here is we can also play with weights. So weighting would be like, hey, when I ask for a certain scene, what's really important to me is the shot type versus, say, the duration. Like I care less about how long the clip is and more about that it maybe matches my description or it matches my shot type. So by default, all these weights are set to 1, which means each value here has the same weighting, meaning, they're going to be treated equally. But maybe let's say we want the shot type to be more important than the other pieces. So we would set up like maybe 2.0. So this means the shot type is going to be twice as important as anything else we request here. At this point, we can go ahead and fill this out. So I'm going to start with just one scene, and then we'll come back to this and we'll create a little like script and work off that. So let's say I want something that's like 5 seconds long. Maybe I want a scene with only one person in it. And then let's say the scene should be a woman walking down an empty hallway. And then let's set the shot type. So, for this type of scene, I think maybe something like a medium shot would be good. That's again about waist up. So we can kind of see them walking, but we get a good view of them. So at this point, I've got my little clip I'm looking for here. I can go ahead and hit submit. And what that's going to do is it's going to pass this data back to the Colab server. So I come back here to Colab. This next cell will output both the data I've requested as well as the weights that I'm using. And if we look here, I see the duration I'm looking for is 5 seconds. The person count should be 1. The description is a woman walking down an empty hallway, and I want a medium shot. And then I've got my weights here. So everything is weighted equally, except the shot type is about twice as important as everything else. I'm not going to kill my server yet, just because I might come back and like play with this a little bit more. But one of the things that's kind of weird is like, you want to make sure that you always kill your ngrok server before killing your Colab notebook. You can end up in this weird world where like your ngrok is open, but you can't get access to it. And then when you try to restart this notebook later, your tunnel here might be inaccessible. So it can be kind of messy. So always make sure you run this before you turn off your notebook, but I'm gonna leave it open for now so we can keep playing with this. Okay, so we've now got our data saved back into Colab. Why don't we grab like a random clip here? Let me actually change the code here a little bit. Why don't we grab a random clip and compare the values here? So yeah, so if I turn this off, this will just grab a random clip for me. So it's going to grab one that's King Kong. It's got some duration here. It's got a frames per second. It's got my unplug description. Does it have people count? Person count 0. So there's nobody in the scene, which is fine. What we'll do then is we'll actually look at the values and compare the values here. So we're going to go ahead and save that into another array just so I can do the comparison. And then this cell will actually run the comparison. Now, it's not actually going to run the unplug description comparison because I need to run that separately, but it will output all of these other scores. So we'll output how many people are in the scene. It'll output how comparatively similar the shot type is, as well as what else is in here? Oh, the duration. So when I run this cell, you'll see it goes duration, person count, unplug description, shot type. So in this case, I've got the duration. Seems like it might be 1 second longer. Is that right? Duration, yeah. So it's 1 second longer than what I requested. The person count, it's 1 less person in the scene than I requested. We skip over the unplug description, and then the shot type does not match. So this is kind of what we do here, where it's like, we multiply these scores and then we figure out an overall score. So because I skipped over the unplug description, I do want to run this to sort of get a sense of like what the closest description is. What ends up happening, or the way I've set this up, is that it will actually process the description and compare those first, and then it will actually take everything else and compare those categories. The reason for that is because when doing sentence similarity, you get back a list like that's sort of reverse, or like from most likely to least likely, and allows us to just kind of work with that data a little bit easier than trying to like process everything all at once and then do everything else all together. So we're going to run this cell, and this cell like outputs what it thinks is the closest score for us. So again, what I was looking for is a woman walking down an empty hallway. And the closest thing it found was the image shows a woman walking down a dark hallway carrying a bag. And that has a score of 0.611. So not the closest score, but pretty close. And there's a couple others here that are also similar in terms of scoring. So what I would like to do now is I would like to compare these scores to my other scores, right? So I want to go in and say, okay, this has a score of this, but what if, you know, the shot type is completely wrong here? Or what if the number of people in the scene is completely wrong? So we kind of want to balance out all those weights. So next cell here, we'll go and run through, it'll actually, all it will do is it'll run through, did I ask for how many hits here? I don't think I set, I think by default, the number of hits it looks for are 10. So maybe let's set this to a little bit of a wider range. So let me just remind myself how to do this again. Top K is what I'm looking for. Okay. So I want to add K in here, and let's set this to 100. Okay, so this is going to return all of the 100 hits that are closest to our description. And then what we're going to do is we're going to process all the other data in it to try to find the closest amount. And so I run all this, I get out a bunch of scores, and it tells me the closest scene is this one. So One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest 003. Let me see if that actually ended up being our top video as well. It did, yeah. So I think the difference here is that because of this score, we were able to find the closest looking value, but everything else also kind of matched up as needed. Cool, okay. And then if we want to watch that video, just to make sure it kind of gives us what we want, we can copy this path here. We can paste this into this cell, and let's run it and see. So interestingly, I would say this is not a medium shot, although it might be by the end of this year. Let's see. Yeah, it's kind of a medium shot here. So it is close. But, you know, it starts as a pretty long shot. So, you know, probably what happened here is the content was closest, so therefore it won out compared to everything else. So that's just doing one clip, but what if we want to do like all of our data, right? So let's go back to our algorithmic filmmaker here. And let's instead say, maybe what we want to do is we actually want to work on a sequence that goes from like a really far shot to a really close shot. So the way to do this would be to, let's actually change our weights. Let's make the description a little bit stronger. We can leave shot type as strong too. And then let's add some scenes in here. So what you can do is you just click this button. It's going to add some additional scenes for us to request here. So let's start with a little bit of a shorter sequence. Let's go 3 seconds, one person. And I have a feeling this data set is biased toward men because they're all old films. So I'm going to say a man walking down an empty hallway. And let's set this one to the long shot. So she'll be the furthest away. And then what we'll do is we'll just copy and paste these values in here. I don't really have a good way to copy and paste in this tool, but we'll get there. And then let's set the shot type to change. So we'll go long shot, full shot, medium shot, close shot, and then we'll add this and we'll go 3. And then we'll do an extreme close-up. I don't know how it's going to figure out that a man is walking down a hallway with an extreme close-up shot, but let's see what happens. Okay, so now we can submit this data back to our system. So we'll come back up here. And let's just double check to make sure our updates happen. So we go to this cell, we'll run this, and we'll see here all of our data. And yep, it captured the weights correctly. It captured our new scenes correctly. And now let's process this. So instead of comparing clips, let's jump all the way down to processing the entire web UI sequence. So what this is going to do is it's going to iteratively go through each of those requests, and it's going to find the closest value to match that. So run that. just to save out our files. And then this is going to go in and do the embeddings for each of our descriptions first. And then the other option here is one of the things I noticed when I've been using this tool is a lot of times it will pull up the exact same clip multiple times, right? Because you're looking for a certain description. It's likely that description will be unique to the video clip. So you have the option here to allow for repeat video clips. In this case, I kind of want all of them to be unique. So I'm going to say do not allow, which means what will happen is it's going to basically pull out that result in each time it cycles through. So it'll find the most likely from that first scene, and then it'll pull that video out of the options, and then it'll go through and compute the rest of the stuff. So this might take a minute. Let's just see how long this takes to run. It actually didn't take that long at all. Okay. I don't know this actually. Let's see. All right, yeah, let's take a look at this and see what happens. So it's now grabbed all of our data and processed all of our results. So what we can now do is we can go ahead and turn that into a little film. So what I've called this is like a walking zoom. I'm going to set the size and the dimensions. And then I'm going to leave the length of the clip as is. So we'll get the full length. If you wanted it to match the exact length of clip that you looked for here. So if you want it to match exactly 3 seconds for each one of these, you go ahead and check this box and that will trim the clip down to that size. In this case, I'm just going to leave it open and let it run. And this will process a video of this output for us. All right. So where did I save this? I saved this to content drive, my drive, walking zoom. Let's go down here to the bottom. So maybe while we wait for this to download, let's think about other things we could do with this tool. So we could ask ChatGPT to actually give us exactly what we want, right? So let's go. I've actually not done this yet, so we're going to try this together and see how this goes. Log in. Where's my login? Okay, so let's go ahead and make a new chat. Let's set it to ChatGPT 4. Okay. So one of the interesting things about this tool is even though the web UI exists to make things easier for us, all we really need is this value. So we just need a list, and inside of those, each one of these is like this key value pair, right? So why don't we see if we can actually have ChatGPT generate these key value pairs for us. So let's see how we can do some prompt engineering here to make this happen. So let's say you are a bot that helps produce scenes in films. You will take the given scene description and generate the key value pairs scene from a movie. For each scene description, provide oh, okay. Okay. Let me go back to ChatGPT real quick. So for each scene description, generate the following. A Python key value pair. See if this works. Okay, so format. What do I want here? I want person count. Let's take a look at, what is it called? Shot type? Yeah. All right, let's see how this goes. Okay, cool. So it's gonna say, I'm gonna give it a scene. So let's say a man is walking down an empty hallway. Do it returns. Interesting. Okay. Okay, we're getting close. So I think that I see the issue is that the duration was set as an actual string value. So let's do this. Let's take this prompt, let's restart this here. Let's paste this in and let's say duration. How long should the clip be? Provide an integer or provide a float with amount of time in seconds. A float value. Okay, let's see if this one works better. A man is walking down an empty alleyway. Cool. Interesting. It's cool that it kind of gives me rationale for why it's doing this. So a 15-second clip with one person in it because only one man is mentioned. All right, cool. So we're getting somewhere with this. So let's say generate another scene. Man walking down the hallway meets another man. Okay, cool. So now we have two scenes here. I could go on and generate more of these as we talk through this, but let's just go ahead and copy each one of these. We're going to copy this, and we're going to go back to this page. And then what we want to do is you'll see here that the scenes are written like this. They're written as this value. So I could probably get ChatGPT to actually combine all of them into one list, but just for my own sanity and not to spend all day prompt engineering, let's do this. So let's say scenes equals, and then we'll make some brackets there, and we'll paste this in. And I'm just gonna make this a little bit shorter. I think these scenes are a little too long for what we're trying to do. Let's see. Copy this. And let's make this 5 seconds. Okay, cool. So I think we can keep our weights the exact same here. Cool. Okay, so now we can go back down to our processing system here. Let's go ahead and run this again. Run this. And run this. And here we go. Now we've got two clips. We've got All About Eve and then Raging Bull. Let's combine this. Let's call this Chat GPT walk and talk. Okay. Run this one. All right, while this one runs, let's go ahead and check out what our previous one looked like with our sort of walking zoom. Here we go.
Cheered loudly, lustily, and long. How thoughtful of her to call and invite me that afternoon.
A couple of years after we were married.
A boxing match, the two of you?
Oh, really? Yeah, the two of us, really. I can't imagine it. Well, it wasn't in a ring or anything like that, you know. Oh. See, Daddy was on this physical fitness kick. So he had a couple of us over one Sunday, and we all went out in the back, and Daddy put the gloves on himself, and he asked.
Okay, the last one's kind of a fail because it's clearly not an extreme shot. But it's still interesting that we've now been able to grab just a series of clips of men walking down hallways. And you can kind of see this is beginning to create like this more like conceptual idea of just, beginning to combine all these pieces together. Now, obviously, like what I kind of find kind of interesting, and this is what I like about this process, is it kind of like I can iterate on it, right? Or I can think so like, oh, I'm seeing something interesting here that maybe I can play up. Is like the first couple of clips are all black and white, and then the last clip is in color, and it's like, huh, should I actually play some of that up, right? So the tool does support actually grabbing color values too. So you could say, if you processed all this using the HSV stuff we looked at in the first segment class, we could even say like, grab me all the stuff that is really, actually be hard to do grayscale with this, but that's kind of an interesting concept. It's probably a way to do it. You would basically just look for like hue saturation values. So you would look for something that's really desaturated. So maybe you would say grab the third index color and look for a really low saturation level. You could probably do something where you're only grabbing black and white clips. And that would be really interesting because then you could sort of like almost make this noir of just men walking down hallways. So this is kind of how I use these tools, which is just like almost exploratory. It's a way to explore a video data set and see what's in it and see what you can create with it. So it's a helpful tool. It's definitely not the best, right? Like if someone were to make a startup out of this, it would be like real time. You could ask for stuff and like stuff would pop up immediately. This is like the lo-fi version of that. But I do think having this massive data set, you can begin to play with it and explore different elements in a really interesting way. Let's download our other video clip, which was the ChatGPT one. So here's our man walking down the hallway.
Yeah, but how much abuse you want to take?
I hit her enough. What am I supposed to do?
Okay, so there's some interesting challenges here to kind of creating a narrative out of multiple clips, right? Like ideally, what would have happened here is that like, when this cuts, like, I don't know, maybe the men would have been already in conversation like at the middle of the hall or something. So as I mentioned before, the downside of sort of this FFmpeg tool is like it just automatically combines everything. But what I've got down here below this is the EDL file output. And if you run this, what it'll do is it'll actually package up all of your clips that you've been selecting. And then you can download that as a little package and open that in like Resolve or Premiere. And you could actually then go in and edit it, right? So the goal is like not to get you like 100% of the way there with a perfect film, like out of the box, but more just like give you all the pieces that you want from this massive data set, right? From like 100,000 clips, pull out 100 clips that you can then take in another program and edit, maybe bring a little bit more narrative structure or a little bit more of like a visualization structure to that tool. So this is here. I think I've like copied the link and how to open this into Resolve, but this is also an option for you. You could build this little file package and then be able to edit it directly in there as well. Cool. Any questions about that process? Yeah.
I'm sure I missed this, but
yeah.
ChatGPT one, you did all about even rating goal. Did you really just parameter you set for the ChatGPT?
No, what we set, I mean, all ChatGPT gave me was basically, it gave me these parameters. So it said, okay, based on the description you provided to me, I think the duration should be this, the person count should be this, and the shot type should be this. We could actually, let's actually like back this up a little bit. So maybe what we do is, let's try one more version here where we actually just have it generate the entire scene, including all the clips for us. So let's do this. Let's say, begin by asking for a description of the scene. Robot that helps produce scenes in films by breaking them down to individual visual clips. We'll take the given scene description and generate the key value pairs for a series of clips from a movie. A series of clips from a movie. For each scene description, generate a number of clips as a key value pair list. And then let's say, begin by asking for a description of the scene and how many clips should be in the scene. And then for this, let's say a description Let's run this and see. I've never really done this before. I have no idea how it's going to generate like multiple clips for us. It might be a mess, but let's just see. Okay, so please provide me with a description of the scene you like to break down into clips and specify how many clips you envision for the scene. Okay, so the scene involves a man running into another man in a hallway, having a conversation with him. The scene should comprise of 10 clips. All right, let's see how this goes. ChatGPT is notorious in not being able to count things well. So we might get like 8 clips, we might get 12 clips, we might get 10. Let's see. Isn't terrible. All right, so the description is, all right, so the first clip is going to be the first man walks down the hallway alone, approaching the camera. Cut to the second man walking from the opposite direction, looking distracted. Close-up of the first man's face showing a look of recognition. Close-up of the second man looking up and noticing the first man. Both men stop and face each other in the middle of the hallway. Medium shot as the first man starts the conversation, animatedly talking with his hands. Reaction shot of the second man listening and nodding. The camera pans to include both men as they begin to walk. Close up on their hands as they exchange a document. Interesting, I didn't tell it to do anything with a document. The 2 men part ways, each heading in opposite directions down the hallway. I don't know, let's generate this. Let's see what happens. So the other thing is I need to figure out how to convert this into a Python array. Convert into a Python array, please. Wow, this might actually work. Holy shit. I don't use ChatGPT that much these days, so I feel like every time I can actually make a prompt that like works, I'm like kind of shocked. These durations are total bullshit. I don't know how they're planning this, but we'll see. Okay. So we're going to copy this and we're going to go back over here and we're going to paste this into our data here. Where does this go? Where does this go? Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to put this in here. So we want to keep the variable as scenes because that's what the program is looking for. So we're just going to delete this and make it scenes. And then we're going to save this. And then we're going to process the entire web UI sequence. Looks like we got some, we have some clips here. So we're going to convert this into a film, but I'm going to trim it to match the duration that we asked for. So ChatGPT walk and talk V2. Okay, while this process is going to take a little bit of time because there's 10 scenes. Below this code is also a whole other section called using a guide film. And we talked about this 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago when we talked about sentence similarity, which is the idea that if you provide a JSON file of just a single film, so say you run it against your own film or a different film that exists outside of your current data set, that's the important part. What you can then do is you can actually compare the guide clip to your body of data, right? You can basically remake a film using your existing data. just by basically like looking up the two JSON files and comparing them to each other, right? So over the guide film, what we'll do is we'll go through each clip in that guided film. We'll pull out all the data for each of that, and then we'll compare that to our data set, and we'll find the clip that most closely relates to that. The thing I think about this is that I think it only works on, oh no, I do have other stuff in here. Okay, so you do have to pick sort of a description model first. So let's run this. Actually, this is not going to run until we finish our video. So let's see. Oh, it actually finished. Okay, cool. So while I download that, we'll talk about the guidance stuff. Okay, cool. So I have here, I've already pre-made this thing called guide.json. And this meant what I did is I went through all the steps I needed to in processing a single video clip and saved that to a separate file, right? So I took a movie, broke it down to pieces, saved all of that to this guide.json file, and then ran all the other pieces of code on against it. And then I've got my data set of clips here. So this is one film, and this is 100 films. And we're going to use the mplug description as sort of our key for the sentence similarity score. So we'll run this, and this will probably take a little bit of time to actually load in everything. And then just like we did before, we're going to set some keys here. So I'm going to use the keys of duration, person count, the mplug description, the shot type, and the shot type confidence. And then I created some weights here, and these weights are kind of arbitrary, to be honest. The idea is I want the same amount of people in my scene, and I want the shot type to match. So I care a little bit less about the description, and a little bit less about the duration of the clip. And I just mostly want things to be the same number of people and the same shot type. And we'll go ahead and run this stuff as well. And so these two cells just sort of set up all of our data and our process. And then here we'll actually run all the data. So this might take a minute, but we'll use, let's not use allow repeats. This is all going to process. This might take, I don't know, 5 to 10 minutes to process. And then we'll combine it all into a single video using that exact same technique. So we'll make the max width 19 and 80. And I'm going to leave the match duration off. Okay, cool. So that's just going to run in the background. And I don't even know if we'll be able to finish that during class today. I mean, we'll kind of see. But this is basically a way to just compare two files to each other and basically remake a film from all these pieces. Let's check out our download here and see what our ChatGPT thing made for us.
You hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Why?
Oi.
Only 24. Talk about it. You're a fucking dog. And this is what I'm doing. How much you hit with a hell of a bat, huh? This is spy stuff.
Okay, so let's go through this one by one and just sort of see what happens. So I pull this up side by side with the ChatGPT description. Let's see how well it matched. Let's go to, oh, did I close ChatGPT? There we go. Okay, cool. So clip one should be 3 seconds long, and it should be the first man walks down the hallway alone. So I don't see anyone in the scene, but it is 3 seconds long. So again, this is where weighting might help, right? If I said the number of people in the scene really matters, I might crank up that person weight so that I always get a clip with that. Instead, what I got is an empty hallway. Next scene is 2.5 seconds long, but cut to the second man walking from the opposite direction. So I don't know how it does opposite direction. That'd be pretty hard for me to figure out with the data I have today. Also, you'll see there are 2 people in the scene. So again, I should probably crank up my person count. If I'm really looking for a scene where you have people walking and conversing, then like the number of people in that scene really matters. So I'd pull up the person weight quite a bit. This one is close up of the first man's face, showing a look of recognition. I don't know, does that look like recognition to you? Maybe. 2 seconds long. That works. Okay. Next is close up of the second man looking up and noticing the first man. Again, there's kind of 2 people in the scene. Both men stop and face each other in the middle of the hallway. I mean, I guess they are facing each other. And then what's the next one? Reaction shot of the second man listening and nodding. All right. Oh, he does nod. The camera pans to include both of them and as they begin to walk together. Okay, well, that's not really true. And this one is close with their hands as they exchange a document. Don't get that at all. Oh, wait, hold on. I'm off by a scene somewhere here. Oh, this is the... Okay, this is the medium shot as the first man starts the conversation, animatedly talking with his hands. So I can see that there are some hands there. Then this is the camera pans include both men as they begin to, or sorry, reaction shot of the second man listening and nodding. I didn't really get that here. Camera pans include both men as they begin to walk together, still talking. That's true. Close up on their hands, they exchange a document. I don't see a document exchanged here, but I guess I see some hands, so that's probably what I caught. And then the 2 men part ways, each heading in different directions. Well, not necessarily heading in different directions, but they are walking away together. So what can we take away from this? Well, one is like, it's really hard to find exact accurate matches, even with a data set of 111,000 clips, right? Like this is a thing I've noticed like quite frequently is I need way, way, way more data than I actually expect. And you can kind of makes sense, right? Like the idea that someone somewhere has shot this exact scene and you have found it and pulled it into your data set is going to be tricky or challenging. So, you know, maybe this is like I need to spend the next 2 years just like accumulating more and more video data, that sort of thing. Weighting probably matters. So I should probably really overly weight in this particular scene, like a person count comparison. So I'd probably really make sure that's the case. Now, the challenge is, did my person count machine learning model that I ran actually accurately count how many people were in the scene? If I had to guess, I would bet that something like this scene might not have actually found 2 people. Or maybe even this scene, because this woman is off screen and her face isn't really there, I wonder if the model actually captured this as accurate, right? And I would need to go in and actually look at the data and be like, okay, did I find this one? Did I find this one? That sort of thing. So all of this is compiled up to say like, we've made a very interesting sort of video clip. But if I were to say, can you describe what's happening in the scene? You'd probably not be able to. But that's kind of the fun of these tools. Like, I think there's just something really interesting about like, especially right now, because machine learning tools are all the hype. And like the idea is that everything you're given is like, it's, you know, everyone's like, oh, you can do all this, you can do all this. And it's like, it's still really hard to actually make this happen. Like it's still a big challenge. What would be interesting instead would be to actually maybe feed each one of these descriptions into like Runway's text to image generator and see like, is that better? It might generate better options. It wouldn't look real, but it might generate the better descriptions here. So, you know, all these tools are not nearly as good as they say they are, but I think there's something really interesting about like that gap between like the human brain and like how an algorithmic brain works. And that's why I find this stuff really fascinating. It's a way to generate sort of something interesting in like a found footage scenario, but like you still feel like it's clearly like, feels like an alien made this film, right? Like it does not feel like a human actually put this together, because quite honestly, they didn't. Yeah, so that's sort of like, you know, this tool, and I think it can expose some interesting angles you can then, you know, really play with more. As always, I sort of say like, never just like take the output from the model exactly as is. You know, maybe I would take these clips and actually go in and try to see if I could turn them into something that was a little bit more interesting. Maybe I would decide to actually zoom in on the video clip of the guy's hand and see if I could like emphasize something that like is happening there, that sort of thing. Yeah.
How many movies did you say were in the data set?
About 100. 100 plus. But I should also add, I don't think all of the data has been properly assessed. So I would guess about 60% of the films actually have descriptions. And I think the way this tool works, if there is no description, it's never going to show up as a result because the scoring system would basically make that irrelevant to you. So I'm going to probably go back and add more descriptions to these pieces. Yeah.
The actual video, if you had to guess, how many gigabytes would you say?
I don't know. Let me look at how big my drive space is right now. A lot. I've currently used 4 terabytes of data. Now, I don't think that's all the videos. In fact, like I've got a bunch of different video things here. If I had to guess, I don't know if there's a way to actually do this directly in Drive.
I don't think there is a way.
Yeah, but I would guess it's in the terabytes, but not like crazy. It's probably like 1 terabyte, which is crazy. But yeah, it's, you know, that's the other side of this, right? Is like, how do you manage this data? In this case, I think I've resized all the video clips to be 1080 high or like something around there. Obviously, a better way to do that would just make much smaller videos. It'd be a lot faster in many ways. But, you know, everyone sort of wants 1080. If you're going to submit this to like an experimental film festival or something, like it's got to be at least HD, which is that. So that's kind of why I keep it like that. Again, if I were like, if this were my full-time job, I would also have like a whole database of like smaller clips and bigger clips. So then I could actually like access stuff faster, make little scratch videos, and then like pull the high res when I'm ready for it. But since it's just me and I don't necessarily care about like, you know, making all that stuff efficient, it's sort of like that. But yeah, there's so many interesting ways. There's actually, what's the guy's name? I don't know if he's taught at ITP before. Yeah, Anton Marini. See if I've got his. Yeah, so I think he's building this thing. Oh, here's this. There's this cool project he made, which is called, it's called the Orbit. But what they did is they worked with HBO at the time, maybe Max at the time. I don't really know. They basically set up a, oh my God, Jesus. They set up this like really cool thing where they went through all of HBO's like TV shows and basically did a similar thing where you could basically run through a catalog of different like material. So using a very similar technique, they were able to sort of build this like pretty crazy tool. Again, no one's HBO has not asked me and said, hey, can you do this for $1 million or something before, you know? But like I think they've got a lot of interesting things here about like how, yeah, they're trying to do shot understanding as well. So they were trying to, you know, sort of combine a bunch of different pieces here as well. So there are some really cool examples of this that are starting to pop up, but it requires a massive data set, right? Like perfect if you are HBO and you have access to all your films or your TV shows for the past decade. I wonder how long this took them. Probably about a year, if I'd imagine.
Is this internal HBO or is this public?
That's a great question.
Sorry, I'm like, it's irrelevant maybe.
I think it was like an exhibit. Like I think this was maybe done when like, I mean, let's watch this video. I think it was like when HBO and Max like combined. And also this is done through like a whole other studio. So it was like more like an interactive exhibit, I think. Yeah, you can see they like
I love you.
I love you.
wow, did I just steal that idea from them when I did that? I must have. I don't know if I ever actually watched this clip. So you can see they're also trying to do post section. I'm sure this is bullshit. I'm sure this video did not work like this in real time.
Are you kidding? Are you kidding?
It's possible it's real time, but I'm sure it's like
do something inappropriate.
these are the best. Yeah, this is totally cherry picked. Yeah. Okay, cool. So you know, people are starting to explore these concepts, but again, you need so much data in order to make that work, right? Like that works because, you know, there's probably 10 seasons of every HBO show. So doing something like this, you might actually find a clip that does that, right? Whereas if you're doing it off of like one movie, the chances of that video clip actually being in your data set, near impossible. And that's where we're getting to this place where like we need so much data to make these things happen. But when you have that data, it is really interesting what you can put together. Cool. Yeah, this is still running and I expect it to run for a little while. So what I'll do is, actually, we're pretty close here. I mean, I don't know how many clips it's going to need to generate, but probably a lot. Yeah. I mean, I'll let this run. We can wrap up class here. And then what I'll do is when this finishes, I'll upload it to Vimeo and share it with everyone so you can see what it looks like. This has been like it's a project I stopped for a minute, but I kind of want to come back to it now that I'm teaching this class again. But I'm going to try to finish out this data set of all of the AFI 100 films so you can then like basically do all sorts of weird shit with it. Yeah, so I would share that data set if I could, but I have no idea how to transfer like terabytes of data around to people. But maybe we'll like, I don't know, maybe at some point I'll be like, I'll put this on a drive for someone if people want to stop by and pick it up and like transfer it to their computer, they can. Yeah.
You don't have to talk about this since we're recording. But
yeah.
Can you talk about maybe at some point how to find video?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, this is on a video that I'm never sharing with anyone else. So there is this website called ytsts.mx. This is just like a torrenting site. But basically, like I probably found 80% of the films I was looking for on here. And you can download them all. I don't know, torrenting is like whatever. I feel like it's fine for this context. There's also another site that is private, so you have to get access to it. It's called Karagarga. And this is another torrenting site that's all about, it mostly focuses on like foreign and experimental films. But in some cases, some of the AFI ones that I was looking for, like straight don't have, like they either were never put on a DVD or put on a Blu-ray and they never made it to YTS, but someone found like this is the place where they will rip like a VHS or they'll rip like a laser disc and you get an access to the thing that never existed in a new format or whatever. So I have access to that, but yeah, it's hard to get access to. You have to like know someone that knows someone basically to get in. But yeah, that's where I start. And if you just like Google torrenting movies, like I'm sure there's a million other options there. But yeah, that's sort of where I've landed with things. The other cool thing is like I mentioned, like that YouTube rip thing. I've started to work with like some stuff around YouTube, like using that as material. That's easy to work with, and you know, using the YT DLP is like a fairly like you just won't get you won't get Hollywood movies off that or whatever.
That's like
but
primarily I just for laziness.
Yeah.
But like
Yeah.
Tools have I don't know different tools, different purposes.
For sure, exactly. Yeah. I mean, to make that AFI 100 set, I think I probably spent about 2 weeks just downloading all the films. And then like every time one of those films would come in, I would like run it through that process. Like my practice in general is like I have a day job, like I got other things going on. So I generally am okay with just like letting stuff run in the background for like weeks on end. So that's generally my process. A lot of stuff is just like over 3 months, I processed all this video. And now I've got a data set that I can work with. And like for me, then it's like, okay, choose a data set that is flexible in the sense that like it's general and has some interesting concept that I can then use for multiple pieces, right? So AFI 100 is like, in 2005, a bunch of old white guys decided their favorite 100 American films. So like for me, that's interesting because it's like, it's a representation of American filmmaking, but it's also like super biased as a data set. Like they lean really old black and white films. They're definitely not films about queer people or like, women in general. They're always about men. So like, there's a way for me to use that as a critical eye in addition to like building out other stuff. So it's kind of why I started with that one. And also I like, just really like kind of fucking with like canons of ideas and concepts. So yeah, part of it is just like making a data set that makes sense and then you can work off of with from there. Yeah. Cool. I mean, we can wrap up there and everyone can get 45 minutes of their day back. But yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this class. Like feel free to leave me feedback. Again, I probably won't be teaching it again. So it kind of just exists in the ether and on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, I hope people found this fascinating. And like, even if you were like, I will never do this again, but at least you got some ideas and like ways to approach these things, right? Like, I'm not expecting everyone to go and make a massive data set, but what I am hoping is like someone was like, oh, I really enjoyed just learning about like object detection, and maybe I want to go in and just do some object detection on videos. Like, there's no reason you couldn't just do that and like have something out of there that is like a sliver or a slice of this concept. And that was really the point of this class, was to be more of a survey of all the things you could do, and then you can kind of find like, oh, I like that idea. Let me dive in more there.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
There and one other very
Yeah,
short-
please.
You're talking about running these scripts for weeks on end. I mean, I see you're not doing, maybe you are doing that in collab, or are you doing that on M, or?
I actually do it in collab.
Oh, you do?
It's just like one of those things that like every morning I wake up and rerun it.
Okay.
And the way the code's written is like it doesn't ever overwrite itself. So it just always finds the next thing it needs to work on.
So you might run, like, you have, you know, you go run one video, you know, it takes 8 hours, you just wake up and run it, and then next day.
Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Yep.
I like, I do a lot of work with like training audio models and stuff, and data processing for audio. It's similar, where it's like hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's really not a nice way to do it.
I mean, collab is fine. I mean, collab has a limit, right? It shuts off after a certain amount of time. Obviously the best way would just have your own your own local server, or, you know, renting something, but then it's costly or whatever, like those sort of things. So, yeah, I found collab is fine for me. I do have a local GPU like at home, but honestly, I don't use it that much, because even the power bill off that thing alone is like kind of balances out with collab. Like the fact that Google is willing to pay whatever power bill to let me run all this shit, like it's kind of worth it in that way. But if I do have some processes that require a very long time and cannot be stopped in the middle of stuff, so I'll run that off those.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense.
Yeah.